House number 20205 on Imperial Avenue sat still like a corpse left unburied, weathered, porch sagging, windows sealed with tarp and duct tape, garbage piled up right at the steps. Nothing about it stood out, except for the smell oozing from inside the walls. At first, folks blamed the sausage factory next door. Some said it was a dead rat. Others pointed fingers at clogged up sewer lines. Whatever the reason, the stench stayed. Thick, heavy, clinging like scorched grease. It stuck to your hair, sank into your clothes, slipped between your teeth every time you opened your mouth to breathe. A kid once said he often saw flies swarming the third-floor window. An old woman called the cops after hearing moans in the middle of the night. But no one believed her. No one knocked on the door. That smell lingered through dinner tables, crept into dreams, then morphed into a shared nightmare across the neighborhood. A haunting no one dared to name. Then, starting in 2007, women began to vanish around here. No blood, no traces, no screams, just the smell and the silence. The first woman disappeared on a grey March day in 2007. Her name was Crystal Dozier. She had struggled with addiction, had 3 kids, was trying to get clean, lived with her mother, always called when she'd be gone for long. But then one day, her voice just vanished. Her mother filed a report. The police asked, "You sure she's missing? Or maybe just busy living?" The report read, "History of leaving residence voluntarily." That summer, it was Tonya Carmichael's turn. Single mum, former crack user, lived on Cleveland's east side. The security camera at the last ATM she was seen at wasn't working. A witness said they saw her get into a car with a tall, thin black man. No plate number. Then she was gone. No news alerts, no 6 o'clock missing person segment. Diane Turner, Talacia Fortson, Kim Smith, Imelda Hunter, one by one, they disappeared, quietly, completely. No screams, no blood, no midnight knocks asking, "Have you seen her?" Just absence, stretching out. What they had in common: black women, poor, homeless, addicted, marginalized. None of them important enough for their disappearance to be seen as unusual. No search parties, no consolidated reports, no charts, no red-pinned maps, no social media groups, no hashtags. Just a few missing posters torn down by the wind hours after they were taped to bus stops. But something strange was happening. All these women vanished within a 1-mile radius. Around a strip of broken-down homes and a long-shuttered sausage plant. Locals had a name for the place, the Dead Zone. A few neighbors started to notice. Ms. Sherrill, 2 doors down, recalled, every time someone went missing, a few days later, flies would cover the second-floor windows of that house. A plumber who got close once said, "I smelled something like burnt grease from the basement, but stronger, sharper, like something dead in the sewer." An elderly woman called the cops after hearing someone sobbing in the night. The police came, stood in the yard, smelled it too, but there was no sign of a crime. They left. The report said, "Caller appears paranoid. No evidence confirmed." One day, an anonymous letter landed on the police chief's desk. "They're dying. Near the old sausage plant. I don't know who he is. But the smell doesn't lie." It was filed under unverified rumors. People in the neighborhood started taking detours. No one cut through the alley beside that house. Kids stopped playing on the grass nearby. Soup kitchen volunteers skipped that block altogether. No warning, no neighborhood meetings, people just knew. A postal worker asked to switch routes. A paperboy stopped delivering to a few houses near that one. Everyone had their own reason, but everyone knew it was because of that smell. Still, no one checked too hard, because the women who vanished, they didn't count on the statistics. They had no media, no lawyers, no one demanding justice in their name. To the police, they were voluntary disappearances. To the community, they were junkies gone bad. To the system, they were an acceptable loss. The whole neighborhood got used to people going missing. Someone didn't show up for a few weeks. Maybe they got locked up. Someone else stopped standing on the corner. Maybe they went to rehab or overdosed. No one thought they were being murdered. No one thought someone was hunting them. And no one imagined that someone was living right there, on the same street, going out for beer every evening, like everyone else. The signs were there. A sanitation worker noticed flies swarming the fuse box. A gas delivery guy saw dried blood staining the back steps. A kid said he heard something heavy being dragged across the floor late at night. But no one did anything, not because they didn't see, but because they didn't want to see. A random housing survey run by the city in August 2009 found this. From 2007 to 2009, 12 black women, aged 25 to 45, had gone missing in the Imperial Avenue area and nearby neighborhoods. 6 had never even been reported missing. 5 were reported but never investigated. Only one case was logged as awaiting follow-up. And every single one of them vanished into the same shadow. A tall, thin man, kept to himself, smoked on the porch, windows always shut, trash piled up. The smell never left. A house no one knocked on, a man no one called by name. That house was still standing, like a coffin left out in the rain, and the women kept disappearing, one by one, as if being erased from the city map. No screams, no trail, no caskets, no funerals, only the smell and the silence. That house sat in the middle of the block, not tucked at the end, not hiding in some shadowed corner. It stood dead center, like it wanted to be seen, like it dared people to walk past. But eventually, people learned to go around. No one stopped at the gate, no one rang the bell. If a kid's ball landed in that yard, they left it. Grown-ups took a different route, just to take out the trash. It wasn't scary, no blood, no broken windows, no one saw anything. There was only the smell. And it wasn't like anything else. Not garbage, not dead rats, not quite roadkill either. It was slower, thicker, like a kind of living death. The house wasn't rotting, it was feeding, sucking the air dry around it. Whenever the sun came out, it got worse. Heat made the bodies in the walls swell, and the whole neighborhood held its breath. An electrician working nearby once said, "Every time I passed, I had to hold my breath, but something tugged at me like it knew I was watching." The curtains were always drawn, not real curtains, plastic sheeting and silver duct tape. Once, the wind peeled one back. A neighbor's kid said, "I saw someone standing behind the window, still as stone, all black, eyes pointed down." The cops were called. They came, asked around, no warrant. They didn't go inside. The report read, "No suspicious activity observed, case closed." A gas man told this story. "I once brought a propane tank into the yard. He opened the door. Didn't say a word, just nodded. Didn't look at me. Looked through me, the smell, like something long dead. But he acted like it was nothing. The gas man never went back. Once in a while, someone saw him at the store. Old hoodie, shaved head, hollow eyes. He didn't greet anyone. Bought beer, instant noodles, air freshener. Always paid in cash. The cashier said, he didn't smell, but the feeling when he looked at you, like he knew the smell inside you. No one knew his name. Some called him the quiet man. Others, the guy in the death house. He had no friends. No one wanted to be his friend. One man accidentally stepped into the yard once, asking for a light. When he came back out, he said, I don't remember his face, but I remember the feeling, like something inside that house was breathing, and it wasn't human. A child went missing once. The mother called the police. The last place anyone saw the kid, near that house. Units were dispatched. They searched abandoned houses, knocked on doors. When they reached 12,205 Imperial, they knocked. No answer. They moved on. The kid was found the next day, asleep at a friend's house. Everyone exhaled. No one returned to knock a second time. A woman who lived 2 doors down recalled, I once heard something late at night. A moan, long like someone being strangled but never dying. She called the police. They came, found nothing. She was warned. Another false report, and you'll be fined for nuisance. She never called again. Every small detail, every whiff of that smell, every shadow behind the glass was swallowed by a black hole called insufficient evidence. No one wanted to believe something was wrong, because believing meant doing something, and doing something meant facing a horror far beyond what anyone could bear. Then something happened. A sanitation worker saw a dog dragging what looked like a human bone. Cops were called. They said it was from an animal. No tests, no autopsy. No one asked where the dog found it. The neighborhood sank into collective silence. No one talked about the house. No one said the names of the women who'd vanished. No more posters, no more calls to the police. Because they understood one thing. No one was coming. A carpenter once fixing a roof nearby said, I saw him digging out back, 1 in the morning, flashlight in hand, digging like he was burying something or about to dig something up. He told people nearby. They just shrugged. Probably just trash. His business. And that was that. The man in the house kept living, kept shopping, kept drinking beer, kept smoking on the porch. And whenever someone asked, what happened to Crystal, to Tonya, to Diane, people just looked toward that house, then fell silent. No one had proof. No one had a warrant. No one had the guts. And the man inside never invited anyone in. The house was still there. The man was still there. The smell was still there. Only the women were not. Gladys Wade, 38 years old, just 3 weeks out of rehab. She was crashing on friends' couches doing what she had to do to survive, when life doesn't leave you many options. It was the night of December 6, 2008, light rain, fog clinging low to the pavement. Gladys was looking for shelter when he showed up. He offered to take her in. Just for a beer, he said. Soft voice. No eye contact. Just standing there, holding a plastic bag, rain soaking through his hoodie. Gladys hesitated. But it was cold. She was tired. She knew these kinds of trades, A couple hours, a cigarette, and then you're out the door. She didn't know she was about to walk into a house that smelled like hell. The door shut behind her. Then came the sound of locks. 3 of them. A long click, then silence. He said nothing. She asked where the bathroom was. He pointed. Up to the 3rd floor. Gladys started feeling uneasy as her shoes stuck to the floor. Something wet. Sticky. The air was heavy, suffocating. And in her nose, a smell she later described as like someone killed a dog, stuffed it in a drawer, and left it there all summer. She climbed the stairs slowly. The banister was cold as stone. The walls rough and peeling. The higher she went, the more flies there were. She pushed the door open and froze. The room was pitch black. The only light came from a nightstand lamp wrapped in yellowing plastic. In the center, a stained old mattress, and on it, dried blood. A lot of it. She turned to run, but he was already there. "You're not leaving," he said, calm, flat, almost empty. She screamed. He slammed her into the wall, one hand around her neck, the other rummaging through his pocket. Gladys fought. She punched, scratched. He bled from the mouth. She kicked his knee hard. He stumbled. And in that split second, she ran. The stairs were slick. She fell down 3 steps, slammed her head against the wall, but she got up. Her hand searched for the lock. She yanked the door, it didn't budge. 3 locks. She turned around. He was on the stairs. Blood dripping from his lip. But he didn't chase, just watched. "Go," he said. "I won't lock it again." She opened the door, ran barefoot into the freezing rain. She could barely see. Her eyes blurred with water and blood. She screamed at the first person she saw, a newspaper delivery driver. He called 911. Police arrived. She was taken to the hospital, bruises around her neck, bloodshot eyes, signs of strangulation. Doctors confirmed she'd survived a violent assault. Gladys told everything, described the house, the smell, the flies, the blood on the mattress, the yellow lamp, the icy banister, his eyes. The officers listened, took notes, then hesitated. One asked, "Are you currently using drugs?" She stayed silent. "Any prior convictions for theft?" She nodded. The report was filed, but no warrant, no search. Police said there wasn't enough to go on. Conflicting testimony, mentally unstable victim, no secondary witness. The report read, "Allegation requires further verification, no scene initiated." Gladys went back to the shelter. She kept telling her story, but after a few days, people got tired of hearing something so unreal. She started wondering, maybe I am crazy. A few weeks later, another woman went missing, then another. One of them had even been warned by Gladys. But no one listened to a trembling addict spinning ghost stories about a rotting house. She went back to the station, filed another report. It was lumped into the old one. No one went to 205 Imperial. Gladys stayed alive, but barely. She couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the locks, smelled the blood, saw the bed, his eyes. No one believed her. No one protected her. No one walked through that door. Until September 2009, Almost a year later, another woman escaped that house. Her name was Latundra Billups. She ran into the street, barefoot, torn dress, screaming, "He's going to kill me." There are bodies in that house. She had a record too. She'd struggled with addiction. She'd been called unreliable. But this time, the blood was still fresh on her forehead when police arrived. And he was still in the house. It was Latundra's testimony that finally secured the search warrant. And when police opened the door to Kwartal 205 Imperial, they learned Gladys hadn't been crazy, hadn't lied, hadn't imagined a thing. She was the only one who walked into hell and made it out. But no one apologized. No one called her back. No one thanked her for the warning. She once said, "I don't hate him. I hate the people who had a chance to stop him and chose to look away." In the Cleveland PD's internal report after the case, her name was mentioned once. In a footnote, survivor, not processed due to insufficient grounds. One sentence, one line. A silence that killed more women. Gladys left the city after that. No forwarding address, no media interviews, no book deal, no survivor spotlight. She just wanted to forget. But some things, once you've survived them, never leave your blood. The case hadn't been solved when police got the call. When they found her inside 205 Imperial Avenue, she no longer had a face. Her head had begun to decompose. Her body twisted at the foot of the stairs, wedged between damp cement and rotting wood. They called her Jane Doe number 6, the name they give to women with no name, no family, no missing persons report, no DNA on file. Not a name to be remembered, but a label to be filed. She wasn't the first they found, but she was the first to make them stop. Her body was discovered on the second day of the search. A forensic tech noticed flies gathering at a crack in the floor. When they pulled it up, they found a torn piece of fabric fused to a splinter of bone. As they pulled, the body seemed to pour out of the house itself. One arm twisted behind her back, a length of rope still knotted around her neck. Beneath her head, old newspaper, dated 2007. The examiner said, "I've worked train wrecks, but I've never seen a death pose like that. She didn't just die, she was entombed." The autopsy found broken ribs, ligature marks, crushed nasal cavity, dried blood in her mouth, and in her throat, a length of electrical cord shoved all the way to her larynx. She tried to scream. No one heard. No ID. No photo. No scars to recognize. No one called to claim her. The file read, female, black, estimated age 25 to 35, shoulder-length curly hair, signs of childbirth, a mother, a daughter, someone who once had a real name, now just a single line, Jane Doe number 6, found under stairs, estimated time of death, 18 months prior. In her pants pocket was a note, folded 4 times. The ink had smudged from moisture, but 3 words were still visible. Trust no one. No one knows if it was a warning, a reminder, or the last thing she told herself before walking into that house. A young investigator, 6 months on the job, took out his phone and snapped a photo of the note. Years later, he said, "I never knew her name, but I've kept that photo with me ever since, to remember that sometimes the truth doesn't have a name, only consequences. When they pulled Jane Doe number 6 out in a body bag, it had started to rain. No one knows what day it was, just that it was a grey afternoon full of mud, and no one came to watch. No flowers, no family, no tears, just a soft rain, enough to wash her ashes into the gutter. In later reports, the case was always remembered by the names Crystal, Tonya, Diane, Talacia, but Jane Doe number 6, she was just a quiet bullet point. No backstory, no narrative, no tragedy anyone could name. And maybe that's exactly why she became a symbol. A symbol of what? Of anonymity, of pain that no one speaks for, of a scream buried in concrete and sealed with a power cord, of a death that happened right in the middle of a city, and no one went looking. A freelance journalist later found a photo from 2006. A woman matching the description, smiling brightly at a bus stop near Imperial Avenue. No one could confirm it was her, but that's all that remained. One smile, in a city drowning in stench. During the third press conference following the search, when asked about the unidentified victim, a police spokesperson simply said, "We are still working to verify her identity. We regret we cannot release a name at this time." A reporter followed up. But was she someone who had previously called the police? Had she asked for help? No one answered. We will never know where she came from, what she survived, who once waited for her to come home. And that is the most terrifying part. Because if someone can die like that, silently, nameless, with no one looking, how many others are on their way? In the final report, Jane Doe number 6 was listed as the victim who fought back the hardest. Her nails were broken. Scratches and dried blood lined the wall. Her arm was fractured. Her throat bore deep trauma from the wire. An investigator whispered after reading the results, she fought, alone, in the dark. No one answered. No one knocked. After the case, someone proposed a small memorial for the victims, but the lot where the house once stood remained empty. A temporary white wooden post was put up. It bore the names of the identified women, and at the bottom, and to the one we never knew, the rain smudged the ink. The post rotted in 3 months. No one replaced it. Every year on the anniversary of the house search, an unknown woman leaves a bouquet on the ground where the porch used to be. White flowers. A black ribbon. No one knows who she is. Some say she once lived nearby. Others think she's a victim's sister. No one asks. They let her stand there a few minutes. Then they walk away. The truth is, the death of Jane Doe number 6 wasn't the most brutal in that house, but it was the loneliest. And sometimes in crimes like this, loneliness is a punishment even greater than death. One day, sometime later, the last woman escaped. Her name was Latundra Billups. Latundra never meant to step into that house, but when you've been wandering the streets for nights on end, hungry, cold, invisible in a city that doesn't see you, sometimes a single offer is all it takes. He told her she could rest, just for a few hours. There were blankets, some food, no strings attached. She nodded, and like the women before her, she stepped through the door, never knowing it was the last time she'd walk in freely. When the door shut behind her, she realized this wasn't a house. It was a rotting cage. The air was thick, The smell hit her chest like a punch. No photos on the wall, the sound of a TV, no warmth of human presence, just flies and silence. He locked the door 3 times, slowly, precisely, like a ritual. Then he offered her a beer. She took it, didn't drink. He didn't ask her anything, just sat across from her, staring. So long she felt like an object on display. When he finally stood, the tundra instinctively rose too, maybe to say goodbye, maybe to speak. But instead of words, his hands closed around her throat. The struggle broke out in that room, soaked in death. She clawed, he pinned, she kicked. He slammed her head against the wall. She blacked out for a few seconds. When she came to, her hands were tied behind her back, a rag stuffed in her mouth. She lay sideways on the cold floor. Next to her, a torn trash bag with something inside that looked like human hair. She tried to scream. No one heard. She lay there. Minutes. Hours. She didn't know. Could have been a day. She thought, this is how I die. But fate, or maybe just his fatigue, spared her a second strangling. When he went upstairs, Latundra bit into the binding. Blood ran from her lips. She got the knot loose, bolted for the door. First try, locked. Second, the latch slipped. Third, the door burst open, as if the house itself was trying to expel her. She ran. No screams, no shoes, just ran. The first person she saw was a male woman. Latundra grabbed her arm, words spilling out in fragments. The mail carrier called 911. When police arrived, she trembled through her story. The house, the locks, the choking, the escape. But this time, something was different. The ligature marks were still fresh, blood still wet on her lip, her dress torn, her eyes wild. And this time, a witness had seen her flee the house. They couldn't ignore her now, no more tossing reports into drawers. The Cleveland police filed for a search warrant. Not for murder, but for suspected rape. The document stated, search of property at 12205 Imperial Avenue, in connection with possible sexual assault. October 29th, 2009. Police arrived at the house. No sirens, no camera crews, no SWAT team. They thought it was just another routine warrant. 2 officers knocked. He opened the door, not surprised, not angry. He said, "This about the girl?" They nodded. He let them in, and the moment they stepped inside, they nearly collapsed. The stench was a wall, thick with rot, feces, decay, gas, and death. One officer vomited at the doorway. The other called for backup. "We need masks, maybe reinforcements." In the 3rd floor bedroom, 2 decomposing bodies. In the basement, 5 body parts. A head in a plastic bucket. A corpse stuffed into a garbage bag. A partial jaw still bearing teeth. Beneath the stairs, Jane Doe number 6. In the backyard, bones, a whole pile. Shallow graves turned up by recent rains. The total, 11 women. All reported missing, all dismissed, all once alive. Now, only a smell remained. He stood on the porch as they carried the bodies out. Didn't scream, didn't run, didn't protest. He muttered, "I guess." It was time. His name was Anthony Sowell. At the time, it meant nothing. Just a man with a record, served time for rape in 1989, released in 2005. No supervision, no reintegration program. He lived quietly in his stepmother's house, as death rotted in the walls, and the smell of corpses became background noise in a neighborhood already too quiet. The news spread fast. Police sealed the area. TV cameras arrived slower than the flies. People didn't cry. They raged. A man screamed into the face of an officer. I called 3 times, said there were flies. A smell, a woman crying. You stood at the door and left. A mother held up a picture of her daughter, sobbing. She wasn't trash. She didn't deserve to be buried like that. For the first time in 2 years, hell had an address. And inside it was the full collapse of a system that had chosen to look away. The police didn't know what waited behind the door. They entered with thin medical masks, latex gloves, and a rape search warrant. Minutes later, they called in paramedics, homicide forensics, and a hazardous materials team. No one was prepared for what they were about to see. The house wasn't just a hideout. It was a silent torture chamber, where death didn't scream, it leaked, layer by layer, through rotting flesh. On the 3rd floor, 2 decomposing bodies on a mattress. One had no face. The other's hands were tied with an electrical cord, eyes wide open, as if still watching the thing that killed her. Under the bed, flies, thousands of them, blanketing the floor like a black rug. Down in the basement, another scene entirely. 3 corpses in black trash bags. A human head inside a plastic bucket, placed next to the washing machine. The lid was shut, but the flies still found a way in. Beside it, a pile of women's clothing, ropes, a torn glove, and a roll of duct tape, still sealed. One forensic tech threw up 3 times and had to leave the scene. Another said, "I've worked plane crashes, but I've never smelled anything like this." It was death. Alive. On the basement wall, scribbled in red ink, "No exit." No one knows who wrote it. Could have been a victim. Could have been the killer. Maybe both. Out back, beneath the weeds and hard soil, bones, hands, vertebrae, pelvis, skulls, a fractured skull beside a broken comb, a single tooth a few feet away. The team dug in silence. They brought out small bags, not whole bodies, just pieces. Fragments in a jigsaw no one wanted to finish. Near the base of the stairs, Jane Doe number 6. In the middle of the backyard, 3 shallow graves. Beneath the 2nd floor stairs, hair from someone. Unidentified, in total 11 bodies found. Only 10 were identified through DNA. 1 remained a number. Nameless. No one looking. No one waiting. The press descended. Every house on Imperial Avenue was surrounded by media vans. Police tape wrapped the entire block. A news helicopter circled above, capturing the aerial view of horror. Within 24 hours, the story hit national headlines. The media called it the House of Horrors. Locals had a different name, one they'd used long before. The house no one dared to knock on. But the authorities gave it no name at all. In internal reports, the address was simply Scene 12205. No emotion, no adjectives, just a crime scene. A place to photograph, to sample, to diagram. Police worked in hazmat suits for 6 straight days. They brought gas detectors, The hydrogen sulfide levels from rotting human bodies were high enough to knock someone unconscious. They drilled through walls, tore up floors, pulled bricks one by one, left nothing unchecked, because they no longer believed what they'd found was everything. A seasoned detective paused outside the porch and said, "What haunts me most isn't the bodies, it's the quiet in that house, like it's still swallowing people." Investigators began reconstructing the timeline. From 2007 to 2009, over 20 women had been reported missing around that neighborhood. No one connected the dots. No one saw the pattern. He chose women the world wouldn't look for, poor, addicted, alone. No family, no voice. He killed them and lived with their corpses. Based on survivor testimony and crime scene evidence, the killer strangled most victims by hand or with electrical cords. He kept the bodies for days, sometimes weeks, then buried them in the basement or backyard. One body was found directly beneath the bed he slept on. No weapons in the house. No cameras. No journals. No trophies. Unlike most serial killers. Just the dead. And silence. A criminal psychologist said, "He didn't kill to boast, didn't kill to send a message. He killed as part of a life rhythm and lived with death as if it was his natural habitat." The community erupted. Residents protested outside Cleveland Police HQ. They held photos, signs. They read the victims' names aloud, like indictments. Crystal Dozier, Tonya Carmichael, Talacia Fortson, Diane Turner, each name shouted with fury. "They told you. You didn't listen." At a press conference, the police chief lowered his head and said, "We failed. There's no excuse, only responsibility." But for the families, every apology came too late. One mother said on live television, "If my daughter were a white college student, they'd have been in that house on day one. But she was a black addict, so no one came." Public outcry demanded full reviews of the system, how reports were handled, how ex-offenders were monitored, and how missing persons cases were investigated. One lawmaker proposed, "We need an alert system when multiple women go missing in the same area, no matter who they are." The house was sealed. A month later, demolished. No auction, no buyers. No one wanted to keep it. The lot was fenced off. No memorial, no marker. Just a handmade wooden sign nailed to a post. "This was once a mass grave. Don't forget." The deaths of 11 women didn't stop the country, but it forced the city of Cleveland to bow its head, and for those who survived, the nightmare still lingers every time they walk past Imperial Avenue. Before the name Anthony Sowell ever made the news, before police tore open the house at 12205 Imperial Avenue, he was just a shadow no one remembered. No one knows exactly where it began, but everything leads back to one place. A crumbling corner house on Page Avenue, East Cleveland, where he was born in August 1959, the 7th of 9 children. There was no father. His mother, Claudia, was remembered by neighbors as hard as stone. Day after day, she disciplined the kids with belts, broomsticks, and metal pipes in a cramped house full of rats and no heat. No hugs, no bedtime stories, no smiles, only screaming and belts. Years later, a cousin who lived with them recalled, "The mother often forced the children to fight each other to toughen them up. And when they didn't hit hard enough, she stepped in." Sowell didn't cry, didn't react, didn't fight back. From an early age, he learned to survive through one skill: silence. Around age 8, he was sexually abused by an older female cousin. No one believed him. No one asked. When his sister was also assaulted, he just watched. Didn't cry, didn't interfere. Pain wasn't unfamiliar. It was built into the walls of that house. In high school, he was barely there. No friends, no quotes in the yearbook. Not a rebel, not even a presence. One teacher described him as a kid with eyes that didn't need other people to exist. No one knew those eyes would later appear in courtrooms, in mugshots, and in the nightmares of the women who survived. In 1978, at age 19, Anthony Sowell joined the US Marine Corps. Maybe it was a way to escape a ruined childhood. Maybe just another way to perfect his survival. He trained in California, then served in Japan, Camp Pendleton, and North Carolina. In the military, he didn't stand out. No trouble, no accolades, no disciplinary action. Just a quiet soldier. But what he learned wasn't loyalty or honor. He learned discipline. How to stay calm while pulling a trigger. How to bury fear beneath a blank face. And most of all, how to kill without a sound. He left the military in 1985 after 7 years. Returned to Cleveland. No send-off. No parade. No one waiting for him. Sowell rented a small room near his childhood neighborhood. Jobless for months. Picked up occasional shifts in kitchens, warehouses, janitorial work. No one noticed. No one said good morning. No one asked where he went or when he got back. Invisibility was no longer a tactic. It was a permanent way of being. In 1989, he was charged with raping and torturing a woman for 15 hours straight. The victim escaped. Filed charges, he didn't deny it. Didn't confess. Showed no remorse. He was sentenced to 15 years. In prison, he was a ghost. No fights, no conversations, no infractions. A guard once said, he was the kind of inmate you forget is even in the room. In 2005, Sowell was released. No reintegration program. No psychological evaluation. No supervision. Just a file. Sentence served. Free. He moved into his late stepmother's home. 1205 Imperial Avenue. A 3-story house with tin siding nestled in a block full of abandoned homes. No one questioned it. No one complained. From then on, he vanished. No job records, no tax returns, no reintegration assistance, no credit cards, no bank account, no doctor, no medical checkups. A neighbor said, I lived next door to him for 4 years, never heard him say more than one sentence. But in that silence, he finally started to live. For the first time, he had total control over his space. No rules, no beatings, no judgment. He was the homeowner, the rule maker, the one who decided who walked in and who never walked out. He built a world where pain had no name, only rituals. Bring someone inside, lock the 3 bolts, turn off the light, and then silence. No screams heard, no questions asked. No one cared about the smell of death, because the house stood in a place where everything rotted, and that was normal. He didn't kill out of revenge for his childhood, not out of hatred for women, not out of bloodlust. He killed as if it was the natural thing to do, when the world forgets you exist. And that's what made Anthony Sowell a different kind of monster. No rage, no madness, no showmanship. Just emptiness, shaped like a man, living among us. After Anthony Sowell was arrested, the city woke up, as if jolted from a nightmare it had allowed to last too long. But waking up came with a price. Now, Cleveland had to face the rotting flesh, and the case files it had pushed aside too many times. The crime scene was sealed off around the clock for 6 days. Forensics worked in hazmat suits. Each room was sealed, numbered and mapped. By smell, by location of remains, by fragments of scattered bone. In the basement, they marked 37 potential blood sites. Under the kitchen floor, they found human skin stuck to a strip of duct tape. In the attic gutter, a burned strand of hair. No one could explain how the house was still standing. Anthropologists were called in to identify the remains. Some victims were identified by teeth. Some only had a partial skull. Some had been burned, their ashes washed down the sink. DNA was matched against missing persons databases. Each time a name was confirmed, police made a call to the family. The calls rarely lasted more than 2 minutes. "We're sorry, we've found..." On the other end, silence, then sobbing. Sometimes, nothing at all. In total, 11 women were confirmed as victims. All had once been labelled not worth investigating. All had once lived within blocks of that house. All had walked in and never come back out. The public was furious, not just at Anthony Sowell, but at the police, the government, the press, society itself. Everyone who had allowed this to go on for 2 years without lifting a hand. Residents who had once called to report the smell, the screams, the flies, had all been ignored. Now they took to the streets, carrying photos of loved ones, name placards and old police reports, folded, dusted, and forgotten. A mother held up her daughter's picture and stared into the camera. The police didn't kill my child, but they gave him enough time to do it. In June 2011, the trial of Anthony Sowell began. Prosecutors charged him with 11 counts of aggravated murder and 74 additional charges: rape, kidnapping, abuse of a corpse, assault, threats to life. The indictment ran over 800 pages. In court, Sowell sat between 2 public defenders. Wrinkled shirt, unblinking eyes, hands resting on his knees. No emotion, no bowed head, no eye contact. The room held its breath. Families of the victims sat behind. Some held framed photos. Some clutched rosary beads. Some couldn't sit. They stood the entire time. The first to testify, Vanessa Gay, one of the survivors. She spoke of the look in his eyes when he locked the door, the dark room, his hands around her throat, the stench of death that clung to her for weeks after she escaped. "I didn't die," she said, "but I haven't been myself since." Her voice cracked, but her eyes never wavered. Another witness, a neighbour, recalled calling police twice after hearing moaning. Both times he was told there was insufficient cause. He said, "When the officers stood at his door, I was watching from my window. Just a few feet away, my daughter's body was inside. They turned away. She stayed there for 3 more months." The defence didn't try to deny the crimes. They cited childhood abuse, war trauma, mental illness, social abandonment. But no one in that courtroom wanted to hear why. They just wanted it to end. The evidence was presented piece by piece. A blood-stained extension cord, a roll of duct tape with strands of hair, a charred scrap of clothing. Sowell's DNA was found on 10 of the 11 victims, and the smell, intangible, unsamplable, yet described with eerie consistency by every witness. One journalist wrote, "It wasn't a trial, it was a communal ritual of grief, a way to say goodbye." Verdict day, July 2011. The courtroom was packed, televised live, police on both sides. The jury delivered its decision, guilty, on all counts, death sentence. When the sentence was read, Sowell didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't breathe heavier, didn't look at anyone. A detective later said he didn't need to hear it, he already knew, because he never believed there was space left in this world for the living. After the trial, a woman told reporters, "I don't need him to die, I just want the world to never forget." He was left alone to do this for 2 years. Sowell was transferred to Chillicothe Death Row. In solitary confinement, 23 hours a day, no visitors, no letters. He lived for 10 more years. He never spoke, never wrote, never asked for mercy. In February 2021, he died of cancer. No final words, no one claimed the body. The final entry in his file read, "Anthony Sowell, deceased at prison hospital, no response, no last words, no special requests." And so the man who lived with the dead also died in silence. These women didn't disappear in a single moment. They faded, bit by bit, with every glance turned away, with every ignored report, with every shrug from a busy officer. Society didn't kill them with knives, it killed them with silence. And when they died, no one remembered the day they were born. No one kept track of the day they went missing. The only date recorded was the day they were found, in a plastic bag, or beneath a slab of concrete. Their deaths had no drama, only decay, quiet. In the heart of the city, evil in this story didn't scream. It smoked cigarettes on the front porch. It gave a faint smile while buying beer. It hid corpses under the stairs for 2 years. And no one knocked. The house is gone now. The lot is empty. No plaque, no memorial. Only a lingering scent, not of death, but of memory. The kind we try too hard to forget. And when all of it ended, one question was left behind. A question no one dares answer. What if she had been found sooner? What if the first report had been taken seriously? What if someone had just believed one woman? How many lives could have been saved? No one knows, no one says. And that is the final sentence. Thank you for watching. If you found the silence in this story more terrifying than the killer himself, share it. So the names we once forgot don't disappear again. This is Dark Files. This is True Crime Unseen. And this is the story of those no one ever knocked on the door to find. See you in the next episode.